Starting chapter 8, we're talking about flow and capacity of resources. We're using an example called Dmv Offices. The objective of this lecture will be following the flow and the capacity of the server and resources. And we will review some of the detail for the setup for servers and resources objects in SIMIO. And also we introduced how to handle the failure and downtimes or scheduled downtime for server and resources as well. And the third objective is the flow restriction and the server selection, how we block the flow or sending the entity downstream using specific restriction or condition, and also demonstrate how to select the proper server using different criteria. The main things in this chapter is we will discuss the user-defined token and using this user-defined token to run add-on processes on the side. Of course, we'll demo some of the technique how to build a waiting rooms before the server is available. So you have 3 to 4 servers actually sharing the same waiting room. Last, we're going to discuss how to do the appointment arrivals and the random walk-ins. So let's go on to this. First, we review some of the server object capability. And basically, the server actually including 3 different parts. The first part over here is we call the input buffer station, which is the input queue for waiting to be serviced. And the second portion will be the processing station, which is why the part is processed by the server, it will stay in this. So you see there's the 3 green lines here. Each green line represents the so-called buffer. The last is the so-called output buffer. On the right, here's the green line represented. And also the server has a capacity either fixed or can be scheduled. And the processing time has different types and different time specification. We will discuss those in later part of the example in this lecture. Second, we introduce the resources objects in the SIMIO. Resource objects also has a capacity to be seized and released by processes or server, workstation, and other processes. But they are similar to server, but there's no place for entity to wait or no processing time available to the server. So the server resources is usually using as a secondary resources at the server or other places, or combiner and separator portion. They all could be using resources. Resources is sometimes also being used as a so-called flow control or flow restriction, meaning you using a number of resources to restrict how many parts you can send downstream at the same time. Those are the things actually very interesting. We'll talk about that throughout this semester. The next transparency shows that the so-called server activity symbol. There's basically 5 different so-called state or status for the server. The first one is the start, when the server is idle, and this we call the start. The second one is the so-called processing. You can see on the right, these are the colors and for the server in the different status or the state. When the server is in processing, which means the server is busy processing an entity. The third is a so-called block, when the current entity has finished processing but cannot process into the network, which means it's stuck in, cannot get into the output buffer. The failure, meaning the server has been failed or scheduled to be down, in that case. And the last one is a so-called off shift. So the current capacity of the server is 0, meaning it's unavailable. These are we're using for many times as downtime. So on this also you can see from the SIMIO model, see a different color for each one of the status, and it will show animated throughout the simulation. Now we'll talk about this, our example, the Dmv Office example. Applicant arrive to the system, and first they come to the registration. There's 2 registration station in there. Then they go into a so-called written test or visual test, eye test, and there are 3 of those stations available. And after that, you go to, if the written test is passed, some of the new applicants goes through the driving test, and some of the written tests could have a value possibility, so it goes through this to the value. And the driving test is the same thing, and the driving test could be failed or it could be successful. If the driving test is successful, you go into the pictures station, where there's 2 photo stations available, and you take your picture, make yourself a license, and then move on. Okay, and here is the processing time for each one of the registration station, and for the registration part, and depends on what type of applicants you have, and the processing time will be different. Initial capacity for the registration is 2, and test service, which is a written test portion, is the processing time follow per distribution with between 10 to 20 minutes, and most likely it would be 14 minutes follow per distribution. There are 3 of those stations available. Then there's driving test, and driving test time between 15 to 40 minutes, and most likely test time is about 25 minutes. Last is the picture server, which is the processing time is follow per distribution, again between 1 to 3 minutes, most likely is 2 minutes, and still with the 2 of those stations available. So we're going to start initially building this the basic model, and also in the previous slide shows the distance among all the workstation. We're going to build it similar to that. I can show you a picture of how we're going to build it, and we're going to start with that. And okay, so let's start to build this thing. Let me go to empty station to begin with. This is model chapter 8.1. So we're going to have a source coming in, and we call it arrival. Okay, then we have several servers available. Okay, and each one of the server will be representing. Then we have several sink. Possibly like that. And the first server we have is called server registration. And the second server is the test server. And this one will be actually the driving test. And server number 4 is the server full picture. All right. All right. And there's a 3 possible outlook. Is this one is the sync for fail the driving test. This sync will be sync for successfully finish what they have and leave the system. And this one we'll assume is going to be the failure for the written test. All right, next we're going to kind of follow, make a link for most of them, and here we have using path to connect them. All right, and then we need to also get the path to go from here to here, go from here to here, go from driving test to, and also quickly I'm going to add a connector, basic node right here to diverse the thing. I'm going to use a path going from here all the way up. But between this basic node to the server, the test server is just going to be a connector. Okay, and then we'll have a path go from the basic node all the way to picture server. So kind of organize this a little bit, align everything pretty, so you look like exactly like the one we have over here. Okay, and of course adding a entity called applicants. All right, get an entity over, sorry, too many of them. Call entity applicant, and there are 3 different type of applicants. Okay. 3 different type of applicant. They're regular. Let's go back to the presentation. First, the applicant come in with the time variable rate table. We'll show you how to do that. And travel time for the applicants 1 meter per second. Processing time, we're going to set it up like that. For example, for the registration time for the applicant, there are 3 different type of applicants. One is just come in for a permit. Okay, this is applicant ID 0 with a 25% of a chance. These are the incoming applicants. And processing time follow per distribution between 6 to 10 minutes, most likely 8 minutes. A second is applying for new license, and that's 1/4 of the applicant come in with this request. And the last one is the renewal of the license, driver license, and their processing time for the registration part accordingly. Also, for each type of applicants, there is a possibility they can pass the test, or there's a possibility they can fail. And also for the new license applicants, they have a chance to fail the driving test as well. And we would like to see for each type of applicant what type of flow time time they spend in the system. Initially, I want to separate 3 different applicants with, for example, the green represents the permit applicants, the red represents the new license applicants, and the blue represents renew applicants. So let's do that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, create an additional symbol. We're going to create 3 different symbols for 3 different status. The first is green, which represents the permit, and the second one, which will be the new license applicant, we're going to color red. And for the third one, we're going to color it blue, represents the renewal applicant. So if you look at this, I have 3 different color, okay, and coming in like that. And then we're going to start building a so-called time arrival pattern, okay, and I'm going to start building this. And our time arrival actually, actually over here, I'm going to copy the time arrival rate from the table and go to our model. Our model, what I need is pretty much like creating a rate table and fill in the arrival rate. That's how I'm going to do this. Go to the data section, go to the table, create a new rate table. We call it arrival rate table for 1. This table by default has 24 hours and has 24 sections, or 1 hour per section. At our example, what we have is 30 minutes per section, so it's half of an hour, but I have a 15 different interval only because the problem runs from 8:30 to 4. If you look at the hour, so from 8:30 to 8:30 in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So what I need to do is just simply copy those information over. Sorry. See if we can make a copy. It's okay, I already have one. Just copy to save some time in the lecture series. 2. Okay, so I'm filling out the rate for each one of the 30 minutes interval, and then I'm going to go back to the resources section, source section, to specific arrival mode. Instead of using inter-arrival time, I'm going to refer to a time varies arrival rate table. And I'm going to choose the arrival rate table for that, and that gives me how the arrival is coming. And also, as we said it, and there's 25% of chance for this. The 25% of a chance for the arrival is asking for permit. 25% asks for the new license. 50% of the applicant is for the renewal license. So we need to using this mixtures to determine which type of applicant is going to be. So here we're trying to do is going over to create a data table. Sorry. All right, create a data table called what we call this so-called table applicants. Okay. Add a data table called table applicant. And this table, first we're going to add a string called applicant. As a string, and we could have permit applicant, we could have new license, and then renew. Okay, and also we could have an ID for that. I'm going to call this for integer. For the type, the type is either 0, 1, or 2. What else we need? We need to, for the mix and for the registration time and so on. Adding another one called mix. There's 25% for the permit, 25% for the new license, and 50% for the renewal. And also, I'm going to add a expression column represents the registration time. Okay, and this registration time units is using time, and it's based on base unit is minute. Follow this again. Processing time per 6 810, 810 14, 578. So this is random distribution. Follow per distribution 6 8 10. All right, kind of copy this. And just adjust the number. A 10 14 5 7 8. For example, Then I have a passing rate using a real column called passing test rate. All right, passing test is about 90% for the permits and 95% for the new license, 98% for the new renewal applicants. So 90% for the permit and 95% for the new license, 98% for the renewal. Also, need to have a column to specify the chances for passing the driving test. So here I have and for this situation we only have for the new license. Let's see, this is the case. Yeah, 90%. And then we have a time and assistant tally system. We go back, we'll talk about this already. Go to the definition, calculate several elements. I want 3 tally, one for the tally, permit, time, and system. Change the name. This is new license. And goes to the next. This is renew. Set up 3 new tally, and each one of them to make sure their time units are time instead of unspecified. All right, so go to the data table again. I'm going to adding another column right here, and the column actually is following an element, so it's follow a time statistic, tally elements. We call the tally statistic flow time. All right. So flow time, and here I'm going to referring to tallying for the permit, and this is tallying for the new license, and this is tallying for the renewal. So this is pretty much we set up similar to what we have over create tally statistics. Okay. And here we detailing how to create a data table for the whole thing, and each one of them, the property type, I just put it in, and the name of each column, and what is the description, what they means in this data table. Next, when a part is generated, creating an applicant is generated, we need to know which type of applicant it is. all right, which applicant it is, and we're going to be using the mixture we just defined, 25% permit, 25%, and asking apply for new license, 50% is renew their license. Also, we need to corresponding doing the tally for each one of those applicants. So we show you how to do that and put in the processing time corresponding to that. Okay, let's do that first. Go back. For this, I'm going to using an add-on process this time. When an entity is created, I'm just double click on the creating entity. As right before I creating entity, we need to know which type of entity is this. So we bring on a so-called add-on process. Previous lecture will show you a different way to do so, but here I'm going to using a set row. Goes to set the set row right here. I'm going to rename it to using as set applicant. All right, and using a table called table applicant, row number will be table applicant mixture dot render row. So that means based on the mixture column, I'm going to select a render row based on the mixture, put it in the render mixture row column. Okay, so I'm going to set which column it is, and also I'm going to assign the picture accordingly. So here I'm going to set the picture of the model entity equals to the table applicant and applicant type, I think. So if we go back to this table applicant, you see that there's a type between 0, 1, and 2, and so that we assign the type 0, 1, and 2 to the picture, and will corresponding to this 0, 1, and 2. So it will have a different color. Next, I'm going to change the first one. I'm going to zoom out a little bit to type in the processing time for each one of the workstation. For the test is per distribution 10 minutes to 20 minutes, most likely 14 minutes. So let's do that. Do the easy one first. So this is random per. It's between 10 to 20 minutes, but most likely it's 14 minutes. Okay, we're done. And for the driving test, it's still the per distribution is between 15 to 40 minutes, most likely is 25 minutes. Okay, now last is the picture time. Picture time is 1 to 3 minutes, most likely 2 minutes. That's picture time. Do that the same. And double check the unit is minute. For the registration portion, based on which type of applicant it is, the registration is a specific rows on that. So I'm going to using table applicant, and registration time. Okay, I'm going to follow that. See what else I have not finished. Okay. Also, after the written test, there is a possibility it will pass the written test based on the definition of a different applicants, and also they can fail. And also, only the new driver license type, which is applicant type equals to 1, they go to driving test. Otherwise, for permit or renewal applicants, they directly go to picture. All right. Finally, the driving test applicants also have a 90 to 10% of a pass or failure. We're going to do this for that process. So here, after the test, I will have 90%. Sorry, it will be table applicant and passing test situation. Pause to this, and this part, the link weight will be 100 minus that probability of a pass. All right. Most importantly, I need to put it on instead of going to using a shortest path, I'm going to using a link way. So there is some percentage that could pass the written test, some of them could fail, and using the link way to determine which direction. Also on this, I have a new driver license applicant goes through the driving test. So therefore, these type of thing is if table applicant and their type equals to 1, it will go to that. And this part, if it's not equals to 1, so table applicant type not equals to 1, so meaning either 0 or 2, they will go to directly for the picture server. Sorry, I haven't fixed all the lengths, the distance for the travel distance on the pass. I'll come back to that in a second. And also over here for the driving test for the new license applicant could go fail or pass. So here I'm using the table applicants pass driving test as one of the probability it could pass the driving test, and this part apparently is 100% minus that possibility. So 100% minus the probability. Okay, so here I'm going to again over here I'm still going to make sure they are followed by link weight this one too, because it depends on the link way. All right. Finally, we need to do the tally on this thing. So here we have all the failing tests, okay, and how that's going to go. Talking about branching condition. And also for the leaving portion, I need to set up a tally for that. Here I'm going to set up a tally. When add-on process again, when destroying the entity, I'm going to add a tally. Okay, but which tallies to use? I'm going to base on the tally for this type of applicant, and using expression, basically I'm using the time in the system model entity, time in the system. Some can collect tally for each type of applicant based on different applicant type and accumulate. All right, this is the whole process we have, and then we go back a little bit to see if we satisfy all the requirement. So it's 555. Okay. Okay, go back. So I'm going to come back to go for the these are the distance are actually 5 meters each. Okay, and this one's is 20 and 10, right? Wonderful. Let's do this. This is 20 meter, and this one is 10 meter. All right, 10 meter. Okay, we now start to run, trying to run this model we just built, and we got an error message say source arrival and cannot assign the picture using the part we generate. So we go back to source, we find out what happened. We create a add-on process while at the event of creating entity, which means is it before it creates entity, we're already trying to assign the picture. So this is the error message is giving us trouble. Instead, we should do this assignment after the entity was created. So here we're trying to do is we trying to moving this. I'm just going to simply reset it, and instead of we're going to run that add-on process after we create an entity. Okay, so create the entity means after the entity was created, then we do the assignment of the pictures and see if we're still running any trouble. You see the red one is the new license. It's supposed to go to the driving test portion. We see that happening. And the blue and the green is supposed to just go through each one of them. We're going to fast forward, look at the result. In this case, I have successfully collected the tally statistic for each one of the so-called new license, okay, new license and permits and renewal. The average time in hours, and we can change that to, if you like, we'll see those in minutes, okay, and how many minutes each type of a applicant was staying in the system. All right, okay, so we finished the first section of the basic building the basic model. We went very slow because we're trying to give you time to see how the model or build from scratch. In the next couple section, we should be a little bit faster to move forward to just introduce the new features, and since most of the basic model is done. So this is how we're going to temporarily stop